I made a joke about Meghan not having British friends, but she used to have at least one. But what she did to that friend was classic narcissistic textbook that you can learn to spot before anyone posts the same on you. Welcome back, my body language buddies. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy, and it would be great if you join us by just liking this video, subscribing, and hitting that bell. Let's get down to it. I've read a lot of comments about how important has been this video journey on uncovering the traits of narcissists. And of course, we should be very thankful for our forever glorious Duchess of Sussex to be one of the greatest examples on so many dimensions of this topic. But one thing that you should always keep in mind is that all those examples always refer to flesh and blood people. The patterns of behavior of narcissists apply exactly the same no matter the setting, gender, or even era of humanity. And one very common trait of narcissists is how they can be extremely charming and joyful and even resourceful, but that is right up until you stop being useful to them. Now, while I keep talking, look at this photo of Meghan with her friend to see what can you pick up from their body language. That is the talent manager Gina Nilthorne-Cohn. Gina is actually from South Africa and then emigrated to England. Well, just for the body language, anyone might be thinking that they are really close friends, especially when they are literally on top of each other's intimate space. I understand that you might want to pose for the camera and get closer for that, but at the same time, Gina is literally pulling Meghan towards herself. You can see that there is pressure of the fingers on the fabric of her blouse. At the same time, Meghan is leaning towards her. I guess because Meghan's a bit taller, so she is doing this to make sure to establish that contact with her hands. That's another sign that there's some closeness to them. But there's something that your subconscious mind is picking up besides the physical closeness, and it's Meghan's left arm. At first sight, maybe your rational mind is not picking it up, but she is holding or hugging Gina in a way that makes full contact of her inner arm. The inner arm is an erogenous zone that are extremely sensitive areas of the body that are especially responsive to touch. And Meghan is going as far as establishing contact in that way with a very sensitive area of the skin to do what seems like a gesture of ownership. That's a gesture that very few people on the receiving end can find comfortable because it's like you're under a grip. It's something that only very close friends do. You can make the test right now and try to imagine your best friends or even relatives and imagine that someone is going to take you a picture and they hold your neck like this. Now that you imagine it, you see that this pose is kind of a big deal. That's why it's so important to remember how useful it is just to picture yourself in the place of the other person, whether it's mimicking their facial expressions or their body posture or imagining that you're in their shoes at that exact moment, to get a very good idea of what they are feeling. But there's another clue of this photo, and it's their feet. There are a few signals here. For one, Gina's feet are crossed. People most of the time cross their feet to be in a more comfortable position or to shift their body weight. But what is fun here is something about how the human body works and why it's so important to look at people's feet. The human body is constantly trying to find balance and fighting gravity, and all body parts work together, especially when we are standing. So when we cross one foot over the other, our torso will naturally lean into that same side. In fact, the pelvis is going to work as a point of rotation for that. You can make the test yourself now, standing up, crossing one foot over the other, and noticing how your torso leans into that same side. This is useful to know because there are countless times when you're watching someone and you just can't tell why do they look so odd, and it's because they are going against those mechanics. So if we apply that body mechanism in Gina's case, we see the opposite. She's crossing her foot to one side, but her body is leaning in the opposite direction, literally towards Meghan. So she's going against the mechanics of her body to literally get closer to her friend, which is a strong signal that she felt really comfortable with Meghan despite she was being held that way. Meghan, on the other hand, had a more powerful position with her feet apart, which can also be a modeling pose. One thing in particular is that Gina's feet are pointing in the direction of Meghan, but Meghan's feet are pointing away from Gina. That's also important to notice. As usual, a single signal is not enough to reach a conclusion, but it's interesting to see that Meghan's upper body is working in one way and her lower body is doing something else. But well, it so happens that they did a lot together. They worked together for a couple years, they traveled the world for corporate and charity events, enjoying the best restaurants and exchanging personal anecdotes. In fact, Meghan was having lunch with Gina the exact same day that she would be having her first date with Harry, and she was telling her about that and they both were really excited about it. But in Gina's own words, she was somewhat aware of the future Duchess' drive for power. She is picky, not only when it comes to her clothes, but also her colleagues, instantly dismissing those who didn't share her vision. Meghan likes to move on. Well, that sounds like a very sugar-coated way that she's a ruthless narcissist. And there's another line that caught my attention about the first time that they met. We hugged as if we had known each other for ages. She was delightful, warm and personable, and hugely charismatic. Well, I'm not saying that every charismatic or warm person is a narcissist, but most narcissists make sure to give this first impression at all costs. There are other photographs that document similar instances of their relationship, and all of them have more or less the same intimate connection of two very good friends hanging out. But then there comes the reality check. In September 2016, Meghan and Gina flew to Ottawa to attend the One Young World event, and by that time she had been dating Harry for 3 months. Gina, to put it in a good way, said that there was a big change in her then. She did give me a bit of a difficult time. Gina was noticing that Meghan's attitude was changing and was not as charming as she was before. Then, 1 week before the news of their relationship became public, Gina received an email from Meghan. An email that said that she was giving up her career and they had to terminate her management contract. Now, I don't know about you, but she had been dating Harry for 3 months. The relationship was not public yet, and you terminate your agent just like that? Boy, if you ask me, I'll tell you that Meghan was seriously burning all her ships. This was do or die. Either marry the prince or hit the bricks, Paul. So Meghan finished both the professional relationship and the friendship by email, and the last time Gina tried to contact her, well, she couldn't. Gina sent her an email to ask permission to use a photograph from the youth summit. Meghan never responded. Her lawyers handled it. Gina could only say, okay. Now, this sudden ghosting sounds a lot like the Piers Morgan ghosting, with the difference that the Piers one is much better documented. But it's exactly the same pattern, and most people never see it coming because it's absolutely out of the blue. And since this kind of toxic personalities always play incredibly charming and joyful up to the last minute, when they just leave you in the gutter, you instantly think that is something that you did. And there is no way of knowing because they simply are not going to talk to you ever again. That's why it's so difficult to overcome this kind of situation, because you never have real closure over it. Even if it's not a romantic relationship, it can leave you wondering if there was something wrong with you. In Gina's case, she could understand that it was not her fault and keeps wishing Meghan the best. But if this happens to you in the future, now you have better tools to assess if you were dealing with a narcissist without realizing it, and maybe be able to prevent that kind of situations before they happen. If you want to refine your observation skills, all you have to do is download my 100 body language tips right in the description of this video. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas, and it will always be a pleasure, my body language buddies. Much love and bliss.